Anyways, let's go to the Western Hotline and let's bring in Tom Gazzola, a buddy from Oil Stream, pre- and post-game show host for Edmonton Sports Talk, and my former co-host on the Locked On NHL podcast as well. Tom, what's up, man? Good to talk to you, and thanks for getting up early for us.
No, thank you, Joe. It's beautiful here in Edmonton. The sun's been up for like an hour, I swear to God. So you just wake up. It's actually really, really nice up here. So my pleasure, and I'm not going to lie to you. As soon as the sun wakes up, I'm like a squirrel, and I'm just like fidgeting all over. I'm missing something. I'm getting FOMO, so
yeah.
I'm just sipping on a coffee before I go into the studio for today. It's a big one here in oil country, and good to be back on the airwaves with you.
All right, so I'm not taking you away from like an early morning golf round or anything out there. Is it that nice? Because here it's been raining and 50 here, Tom, for 50 Fahrenheit. It's been cold and rainy for like a week.
Yeah, it is actually legit gorgeous here. I would think convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit. I think we're in the mid-80s. We're going to have one of those days, not a cloud in the sky. Nice and beautiful. Yeah, it's been gorgeous.
All right, well, a big one tonight against Dallas. I want to get to the potential rematch against Florida with you for sure and some of the lineup stuff for the Oilers. But the way this series is going, up 3-1, is the story that the Stars just can't figure out how to score goals?
I think that's a fair storyline to bring up. And I would say there's a couple of things that have happened. We're sitting here looking at the Stars going, what's up with all their big stars? What's happening with Mikko Rantanen, just a couple of points in this series? What's happening with Rupe Hintz? We know he's hurt now after going into the little scrum with Darnell Nurse a couple of games ago and taking a slash on the top of the foot, and that's kept him out. But he's been ineffective even before he got injured. Jamie Benn, he's an older guy now. Tyler Seguin, he's been nicked up for years, and he's getting older. And Jason Robertson has been a little bit banged up. So I think we've kind of attributed the lack of offensive punch from the Stars to that. And then when you go and you look at the Oilers, you're like, wow, this team's actually playing decent defensively. They are really efficient with the puck in their own zone. Maybe you look at the roster and you look at the D-men and you go, well, that's not really a strong defense on paper, but these guys and this team has been really efficient with the puck, and they have kind of patched it together without Mattias Ekholm for the last month and a bit. So I think a couple of factors go into it. But, yeah, I think for us, at least watching it from an Edmonton media perspective, it just feels like the Stars' big guns just haven't been firing at all.
It does feel like this year, Tom, is a bit under the radar for how they've kind of had to adjust their game a little bit, right? We talked a lot about that with Toronto here in Buffalo in this part of the North America. Toronto had to be a little bit more comfortable playing closer games. I feel like maybe Edmonton has its reputation of being high-flying, of course, but they've had to win different ways this year.
They have. And the other thing, too, that's a great point, because we've been talking about how Edmonton's gone through so many lessons over the last few years, especially in the postseason, and the harshest ones. They've lost to the last couple of Stanley Cup champions, going back to Colorado. So it seems like they finally learned their lesson and matured. And in the regular season, there was a lot of frustration around here because it wasn't an ideal regular season. They weren't good on the penalty kill. They weren't good in their own zone. Their 5-on-5 play was spotty at best. They were bad in the neutral zone. They couldn't save a goal off the rush most games. There's so many issues throughout the regular season that you look at, and there were people around here going, geez, they're not even going to get out of the first round against the LA Kings. And then as soon as the playoffs started, all the guys that were strategically rested to be healthy for the postseason came back, and then they dropped the first two games against LA, and it just seemed to all click for Game 3 here in Edmonton, and they haven't looked back since. But yeah, the defensive side of the game has been a huge part of what has gotten the Oilers back to this situation, and it wasn't a pretty and it wasn't a smooth road to get here, but they seem to have figured it out, and I think a lot of it could be attributed to lessons learned in the past.
Joe DiBiase, Sal Capaccio, joined by Tom Gazzola on the Western Hotline. How much confidence do Oilers fans have in Stuart Skinner right now, who's had 3 great games in a row, but he's Stuart Skinner? I don't know. You always might worry about, the one implosion game that could happen.
Yeah, well, Joe, if you would have asked me that about 2.5 weeks ago, they hated him. They thought that Olivier Rodrigue, who's been toiling in the minors for the last 4 or 5 years, was the answer after Calvin Pickard went down mid-series against the Vegas Golden Knights. But now Stu Skinner's kind of won them over again. He's starting to show the same type of play that he had last year in the postseason after the Vancouver series, where he had to get pulled for a couple of games. Calvin Pickard went in, won one, lost one, and then Stuart Skinner went and he shut the door the rest of the way. Obviously, tough go against the Florida Panthers in the first 3 games of the Stanley Cup final last year, but his MO right now, they're calling him Mr. Game 4. He's 6-0 now in Game 4s in his career. A couple of shutouts in there. I think he's got it down to like a 123 goals against average, like a 930 something save percentage. But when the series get longer, he gets better, and it took him a little bit of time. 6 games, he had a whole series and a half to kind of figure it out as you watch Calvin Pickard rattle off 6 straight wins, and then he's come back. He's been pretty solid since, and the confidence from the fan base, though, I mean, they're always going to be. This is a fan base that's never really appeased until you go and win a Stanley Cup, and we make the joke that this team could win 16 in a row in the playoffs, and some fans are still like, well, should have been 82-0 in the regular season. I'll tell you what, this team, I'll give them this one, but it's just that fickle a fan base at times, and of course I'm exaggerating, but when it comes to the confidence in Skinner, it's growing back. He is winning over the fans a little bit, but there are still some detractors out there that look at him and go, yeah, well, Calvin Pickard's better, still on a 6-game winning streak. Get him in here as soon as Skinner lets in more than 2 goals in a game.
Tom, how big of a loss is Zach Hyman? Noted Bills fan Zach Hyman out for probably the season, it looks like, after wrist surgery. How big of a loss is that for the Edmonton Oilers?
That's huge. There's no denying it. I mean, he all of a sudden became a wrecking ball physically in this postseason. He was on pace to set a record for hits in the playoffs, and already had a couple before he got hurt the other night when Mason Marchment collided with him. And he's just been Mr. Clutch. Everything that you need from him, he provides, and that much more. He's kind of a glue guy in the room. The guys generally love him, and he's not the fastest guy. He doesn't do it the prettiest way, but he gets the job done, and they're going to miss that tenacity. They're going to miss that physical play. They're going to miss that offensive punch at key moments, and probably one of the best signings in franchise history. And he is a guy that I think it was a bit of heartbreak for fans to see him get hurt, and people were wishful and hopeful that it wasn't that bad. But once you saw him not come back in that first period, you knew it had to be bad, because that's a guy that'll play through a lot of pain. Had a Bouchard bomb taken off the face, I think, last year or earlier this season, but last calendar year. He made the comment that his nose sounded like a bag of chips that got crushed, and they had to have a cast on there, and he didn't miss a beat after coming back playing with a full visor on his head and his helmet for a chunk of time. This is a warrior. That's the best way to describe Zach Hyman, and they're going to miss him dearly. The good thing is they have some depth and good veteran players that can step in, and guys who have been playing decently well in the postseason. Connor Brown's nicked up right now. He won't play tonight, but he's a guy they're going to be eager to get back in the lineup. And for whatever reason, you guys, and Joe and I talked about it on our station here in Edmonton, going into when the Oilers signed Jeff Skinner, there are people here that are sympathetic to Jeff Skinner and want to see him get back into the playoffs. He's played 1 game. He got his playoff game, picked up a point. He was a classic -2. And people would text into our shows and be like, don't you think Jeff Skinner should get in? I feel so bad for him, don't you? I said, no. He's made over $100 million. He's just fine. He's skipping his way to a final here. He'll be okay, but he is still waiting in the wings. And with the hole left behind by Hyman, there's a couple of options available to them.
Yeah, sure he wants to get in the lineup, no doubt. I kind of would understand both ends of it. You're right. We've had a lot of discussion on him, and he ended pretty well, right? It was like 17 points in his final 30 or something for the Oilers. Yeah. Also, watching him for years, even though he had that point in Game 1, you tell me if you disagree, his game isn't. It's not something that makes you think it would get better in the postseason, you know? Like, I'm not saying he couldn't perform, and especially if you put him on a top line with McDavid or Draisaitl, I'm sure he would. But, you know, I also don't expect him to be running around physical. That would be my question, is him in a long playoff series kind of get bodied out of the series?
Yes. I mean, Joe, I think it was you that came on our station after the signing, and you said, don't expect him to generate his own offense. Don't expect a lot from him in his own zone. He can get streaky. He's a finisher. That's exactly what he ended up being, and he kind of fell out of favor with the coaching staff really quickly. I think people expected him to be on a line with McDavid or Draisaitl, one or the other. Both of those scenarios lasted minimal games, and you know what? He ended up seeing himself in the press box more often than not for a short while there, and third and fourth line minutes, that's not his game. If they were to insert him in the playoffs again, he doesn't really change. He's an offensive a mercenary, let's call him. And I know they'd probably ask him to do a little bit more than that, and I'm sure for a few games he could kind of get outside of his comfort zone and try to be more of a third, fourth line grinder, but that's not really his style. He's been in the league for, 14, 15 years now, and I don't think you're going to change his stripes all of a sudden. But maybe for a few games, and you ask a guy to sacrifice for a Stanley Cup, some of them can do it. Maybe he would, but I don't know. I don't know if they're too eager to get him in just yet.
Yeah, all that being said, do you think he'll get in tonight, that he'll be in the lineup?
This is probably his best chance, because the other option is, well, there's a couple of things. They have Max Jones that's waiting around. Derek Ryan hasn't played in the playoffs. They got some veteran bodies that are still kicking around that they could put in there. And then they have Matthias Ekholm, who's recovering from a lower body injury, hasn't played since April 11th. So they could go 11-7.
11-7. Yeah.
Or they could put Jeff Skinner in there and try to get it done with him and play him probably minimal minutes. I'm guessing like 8 minutes tonight. So this is his best chance to get back in, just due to the circumstance of injuries. So I'd personally expect to see Jeff Skinner get in over going 11-7 with Matthias Ekholm, but when your best defenseman is saying he's close, he can be pretty persuasive, and they might end up just going 11-7, but I think Skinner would be the right play here.
Tom, before we get into a possible matchup with the Panthers, give us some insight what it's like in Canada, not having won a cup in 31 years and covering a team that's there again. You know, I mean, the weight, is there a weight that goes along with that from the fans, the media, the team?
I think so. I think a little bit. I feel like it probably has subsided a little bit. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, with everything that's gone on between the two countries this year, you're seeing a lot of like Rogers commercials that are heavy emphasis on like 80s rock bands from Canada, that kind of music, and everybody's, pumping their chest with the Maple Leaf, and that's cool. We appreciate that, but it hasn't come with that much of a burden. And I think what's kind of like alleviated some of that is the fact that Canadian teams have gone to the Cup final in the last 3 decades, unfortunately losing a bunch of times. The Oilers doing it in Game 7 a couple of times. The Flames losing in Game 7. We saw the Canucks lose in Game 7. So Calgary, who else? Ottawa got in there. Montreal, which was weird. But I think that has kind of alleviated some of the quote-unquote pressure in Canada for a Canadian team to get it done. Obviously, this streak since '93 is something that Canadians aren't particularly happy about. But I don't think it's as big of a deal. But I think once that gets, wrapped up and it's gone, people will just look at it as a footnote. But I think just the fact that you're in a Canadian market and this is our game, I don't think anybody hides it. There's always going to be that added pressure to get it done. These guys can't go anywhere in Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa, Winnipeg, whatever, you name it, without people recognizing them. You want to go get gas? Well, people are going to tell you about the power play. You want to go get groceries or you want to go for a movie night or something like that, well, you're going to hear about why didn't you beat the Flames 2 weeks ago? Stuff like that. Like, it's always going to be there. But the onus, because it's a Canadian team, to get it done and hasn't happened since '93. I don't think it's as big of a thing as maybe it used to be, especially after the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. The rematch, Tom Gazzola is with us on the Western Hotline for a few more minutes. The Panthers are through, and I don't want to fast forward you. They still got to win a game here. But if the Oilers do get through, how different would you expect a matchup to be? How much more confident would you expect to be about the Oilers' chances in a series against Florida? Both teams are banged up. I mean, Hyman out is big. The Panthers, I mean, Reinhart is playing through injury. I don't think Kachuk looks healthy. He's still putting up points, but he just doesn't look like he can move all that well. He's so physical that he'll figure out a way to make an impact anyway. But I don't know, how does this Panther team compare from the one that Edmonton saw last year, in your opinion?
Joe, I think it's similar, honestly. And I don't know what to expect so much. How should I explain this? I think it's more so watching the Oilers to see if they can figure out the Florida Panthers. I think there was certainly kind of an element of surprise last year in the Stanley Cup final from the Oilers, and it was all very new to them. They had gotten to the third round before, but never gotten to the big dance, and I think they had to kind of get acclimated to that. And then finally, when they did, it was already 3-0 Florida, and then the Oilers started to wake up and understand that, yes, it's still just hockey, but it's the final boss, and you gotta show up. You can't just step on the ice and expect your skill to take over. That's not how it works in the Stanley Cup final. So I think from an Oilers point of view, I think they'll use that lesson. I think they have that familiarity with the Panthers. Florida was really good against the Oilers in the regular season, but again, it wasn't an ideal regular season for Edmonton. So there's a couple of things that I would look to when the Oilers make the Stanley Cup final and they face the Florida Panthers. How does Chris Knobloch adjust his strategy against Florida? How healthy is Edmonton? I think that's an important thing. And then you've got McDavid and Draisaitl, who I don't think have cracked a smile in over a month and a half. And how much is this loss to the Panthers last year motivating them to kind of go supernova and right or wrong from last year? And so I think that's kind of some things that Oilers fans can be confident in, is this team has shown that it can adapt and adjust to its opponent this postseason. And then you've got like two of the best players in the world, plus a couple goalies that are playing good hockey, a team's defense that's kind of come together, even though it's not the best on paper. And there's some, the health of the team is okay, but you list off the injuries to the Panthers and guys who look nicked up. The Oilers have their fair share of bumps and bruises as well. So I think the Oilers will be more competitive in this series. I think that last year's loss is going to motivate them, and then the fact that these guys are mature, they seem to have learned their lesson. They'll use that and maybe get the result that they want, and the stigma of being a Canadian team that can't win a Stanley Cup, and we could be celebrating in the streets of Edmonton here.
Yeah, you're not kidding about McDavid, by the way, like not smiling in a couple of months. I mean, maybe if you watched it, there was that Amazon, I know I watched it, the Amazon Face-Off series from last year. McDavid is, I don't know that he comes off this way publicly. Maybe people are getting more of a view of it now, but that dude is intense.
Yes. Do you know how many dig the expletive in T-shirts are floating around this city now? That's a big thing because of that series. So,
yeah.
But he just looks like a grumpy cat walking around, and same with Draisaitl. And if that's any indication as to where their mindset is at, people are kind of appreciating it. And so far, so good. Let's see if that continues.
I want to ask you about McDavid's contract, and can it get possibly contentious once July 1st comes around and into next year? Obviously, they wouldn't want him to go into the final year of his deal without having a deal, but I guess it's possible. How do you see it playing out? Is this early, like July 1st comes and they sign McDavid to a long-term extension worth $1 gazillion, or
and does that happen?
How does this work?
It could, or does it even happen, Tom, 30 seconds after he's eligible to sign it?
Right.
Yeah. I think, the Draisaitl contract last offseason, that was kind of the big test to see if these two guys were committed to the city, because the city obviously loves them and the organization wants to keep them. It would be stupid to not want them. But once Leon Draisaitl signed long term and at the price point he did, it was kind of like a sigh of relief from the fan base and people going, okay, well, his best friend just signed here. That probably indicates that he's going to be sticking around, and I think that belief holds true. There's no reason for it not to be the case. I mean, McDavid's wife just opened up a new fancy bar restaurant with her business in the top floor of a historic building right downtown here in Edmonton, and everybody here seems to be committed to the city, all the veteran players, and McDavid's kind of the guy that runs the show. He's the guy driving the bus, and I think he wants to stay here. So I do think the business side of it will have to, play its course or run its course and play out. I'm pretty sure that Daryl Cates is going to open up the wallet and say, "Hey, Kate, what do you need? Want some more? Sure. He'll probably get the biggest contract in NHL history and push things up and appease the NHLPA, and it will be long term. They're going to do everything in their power to make sure he's a lifetime Oiler, and whether or not that's announced right after July 1st or whatever, I'm not sure, but I think it gets taken care of before the start of training camp. And we're talking about McDavid, trying to cement his legacy the same way Crosby has in Pittsburgh. I think that's kind of his mindset, go post to post with one franchise and take it to the tippy top of the mountain. And, he's almost done that. And the money's certainly here for him and the opportunity, and him and his family have kind of invested in the community. So I think there's a lot of indicators saying he's going to be sticking around. But, you can't blame Leafs fans for wanting and longing for him. And they've been pestering Oiler fans a lot. We see it from our listeners and viewers that, Leafs fans just can't get over this whole thing. And they're saying, wait till the offseason when the Leafs make this great offer to McDavid, and say, okay, well, that's cute. But yeah, I think it gets taken care of, and
it's not at the same level here, Tom. But it's the same thing is happening here with Sabres fans in Marner, by the way.
Oh yeah,
which is
yeah. What would be great is if Buffalo got Marner. Would be wonderful, and that helps the turnaround. And all of a sudden, the Sabres are beating the wheels off the Leafs and making the playoffs. And I would love to see that. Here's one thing that brings Canadians together outside of Toronto: watching the Leafs suffer. I think that's universal outside of Toronto, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then you can bother me in May to talk hockey, which that never happens. It's always the other way around.
I would love that.
You call me in the fall or the winter. I call you in the spring. That's generally how this goes. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a good team together when we were doing the Locked On NHL podcast, and it's great. I mean, every time you come on, Joe, people are like, geez, that Joe DiBiase. I'm like, he's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Well, maybe one of these years you'll call me in May. The team's got to figure it out, but... Maybe there'll be a reason.
Just imagine Sabres Oilers in the final to the detriment of everybody around the league, and you and me are just high stepping to the rink every day.
Yeah, I'll talk to you in 25 years about that one.
Okay,
maybe, at this
deal.
All right, thanks, Tom. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, guys.